Well, hello and welcome to PM Express and BOST Crude Oil Saga. BOST is in the news again, and once again, COPEC is making some allegations against BOST. Just give you a brief rundown of what's happening now. Once upon a time, many years ago, about 9 nights ago, BOST bought some crude oil and gave it to Tor, so that Tor will refine it and they will keep it in their storage tanks and release it on a rainy day when, just in case there's a shortage of crude on the market, BOST will release it on the market. Now, when they gave the crude oil to Tor shut down for refurbishment, auditing, whatever it is, but for 9 months it was shut down, and so the crude was still sitting there. BOST was saying that, look, this is capital that we have invested in, so we might as well liquidate it so we get our money back. Along came a spider, quote and unquote, called BB Energy, an oil company which apparently is new to Ghana. So they came and bought this crude from BOST, which was stored in Tor. Now BOST gave them a discount, saying that they've kept the crude for quite some time, and therefore they gave a discount for BB Energy to purchase. Well, there's another school of thought that said, if you keep the oil for a long time, it sort of loses its efficacy. Then there's some enzymes that you can buy and put into the same oil to maintain the efficacy. That's where the industry technicality comes in. However, a discount was given and they bought the oil. There's a contention where COPEC thinks that, look, 2 million barrels were sold. BOST will say, no, I sold 900,000 barrels. So there are some barrels missing somewhere, and that's where we are today with the back and forth. And we're trying to just understand the technicalities of how things work in the oil industry. And hopefully by the time the show ends, you and I would have some bit of education in the oil market. My name is Nana Sakwa, the 4th Chief of the Little Republic of Akwamu Dumasa. When I come back, we're talking oil. Don't go.
It was only ownership and value. I'm selling to you. You are not moving the product to anywhere yet. I'm selling it as though you are moving the product out of Tamayo refinery to another destination, for which I need to give you a discount to be able to move the product. The product is still sitting in the tanks of Tamayo refinery as we speak, some of which has been refined or processed here and being sold to all of us. Again, the fourth excuse by BOST. Remember that the world market price of crude quoted on Brent platform is always in reference to Rotterdam. Hence, in the absence of express agreement to the contrary, FOB transaction outside Rotterdam will require a discount to take care of freight and insurance once your quotation is based on Brent. Again, freight and insurance. Where is BB Energy sending Ghana's oil to? For which we need to discount it for them to pay for freight and insurance. The product, like I've indicated, and I repeat, has been domiciled in the tanks of Tamayo refinery, is being refined here. The finished product is being sold to us. If you recall, a week ago, the NPA and Ghana Standards Authority issued a joint statement suggesting that we may have to allow the refinery to be able to sell to us 1,500 ppm specification, although importers are bringing in 50 ppm. That is the product we are talking about, and that is why we do not think the excuses that indeed they needed to discount in order for the buyer to be able to export or ship the product out of Ghana to whatever destination couldn't have been the case, and they knew this very, very well. I say that Martin Amidu must be interested in whatever relationship exists between the two entities, the individuals involved, whether they have any special kinds of friendship or any mutually beneficial friendship. We want the special prosecutor to delve into that. Again, you made mention of the ancillary costs. Ancillary costs are a part of the costs of the crude, because once you need to move it from one point to the other, you would have had to pay for all the other charges, the vessel, insurance, what you call Q&Q, throughput, and all of them. And so when you have paid for all these ancillary costs, and you are selling to a company who is not moving the product out of the location or destination, right? And you throw away the ancillary cost, you throw away the market value, you throw away the premium, then there's a question to answer. You are paid for everything to bring the product in tank. At the time to sell, you could not even sell to get the market value of the product. You are not selling to get the premium on the product. You are not selling to recover the ancillary cost. You are selling to make losses. That clearly is something we are sure Mr. Martin Amidu must be interested in.
So you think they should not have given a discount at all?
Indeed. If you see, if you read through BOST defenses, that they sold the product FOB. Free on board. This product was on which board? Which vessel? And BOST knowing very well it was not going to be able to pump back the product out, right? Because Tor doesn't have that reverse flow mechanism. It knew exactly what it was transacting. But when pushed to the wall, they come back with FOB as a charade, as an excuse. It's free on board when, of course, I'm buying from one vessel, I'm moving from one other point. Product in tank at Tema Oil Refinery. It's not even sold for X tank. I'm pumping it out, right? You sell in tank product for FOB. That is where the problem lies. And I have indicated that we will beg the government to strengthen BOST. Because as we speak, there is not a single fuel trader at BOST. Not a single qualified, single experienced fuel trader. Yet they have engaged in fuel trading over the past period. If you go and check their books, how much losses they've made from fuel trading alone in 2017, you would marvel.
Well, let me ask you a very simple question, Duncan.
Well, so that's the basis of our conversation today, the BOST Crude sale. And I have with me in studio Richmond Roxon, Principal Research Analyst, Institute of Energy Security. It's been a while, brother. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Good, good. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Yourself?
Great, great, great. We've had COPEC. I know we've tried to reach BOST, and I'll read their responses to you shortly. But what's going on?
Good evening to your cherished viewers. All of us must be worried because over the last few months or few years, whenever you hear BOST, it appears it's associated with negative stories. If you remember, last year around this time, we're having a conversation about the contaminated fuel saga.
If you raise your voice a little bit.
Yes, we're having a conversation about the contaminated fuel saga where an estimated fuel of about 5 million liters had been sold to Movenpina and Zoop Oil, companies which were not licensed, as the NPA came out to confirm that when you check their Act Section 11, it's clear that these companies were not licensed. Even the price that was sold when we were looking at 130 pesos was reduced to about 90 pesos, giving a huge discount. It became a huge issue, and the ministry responsible for energy set up a committee to look into it. Eventually, the committee also had to be disbanded under strange circumstances, that the BNI or the National Security had investigated the issue, and that they had issued a report which we still haven't seen till date. In September last year, BOST also declared profit of about 23 million Ghana cedis from sale of crude oil, which we also disputed, because if you check the basis, there was no way they should have even declared that profit. If you have a product that is sitting down and you decide to sell the product, eventually how do you come out to say that you had made profit? It also became another issue. We've also know that there are challenges in the company. When you speak to the staff, they will confirm that the company is not running smoothly as supposed to be. And now we are where we are today. We are talking about this COPEC BOST saga, where crude oil has been sold to BB Energy once again, which is being alleged that it's not a licensed company to be able to trade on the market. Aside that, when you look at the pricing, there are challenges with the pricing, because you consider the international market price, the benchmark, because crude oil is not a product, or it's not like selling tomatoes or pepper on the market. There are benchmarks that you use. So you look at Argos, you look at Platts. There are other benchmarks that you compare your price to. You look at Brent. Then they will advise, at least when you consider these figures, benchmarks, you have a fair idea the current pricing that is what is being traded. Then you'll be able to decide on how much you're selling. Ordinarily, we use Brent in Ghana. Unfortunately, the price that is being alleged that it was sold is way below what the prices were at the time. In September, prices were averagely around $55 per barrel, and from the figures so far, the company itself has confirmed that they sold it around $52. And these are the issues that have come up. But when you look, COPEC is alleging that when you look at the chain, losses have been made across over the period, and that they are alleging that there's some form of corruption then that it should be investigated. So basically that's what's been happening in the space.
You know, if BOST has kept this fuel for a length of time, those in the industry are talking about efficacy because of, you know, you kept it for too long. You look at the inconvenience of somebody coming to tour to, I don't know, siphon it back out and take it away. There are other, you know, players on the market. Ghana is not necessarily a destination where you come to buy crude oil. Could that all be a factor why, look, I mean, Tisuma can come and take it?
Oh, those reasons are not tenable, to be honest with you. If you check crude oil, any crude oil or any petroleum product that comes, it comes with qualifying certificates. Definitely the product should be tested. You should know the efficacy of the product. You should know
after 9 months in the tank?
Oh yes, in fact, once you receive the product, it should be part, so you should know the strength of the product. Then when you decide to sell, so after 9 months, ordinarily what we would have expected was that BOST will be able to put out a certificate that they went through testing and that they can ascertain for a fact that this company, for example, Intertech, tested the products have been tested and that the product has lost some value. Then we'll be able to side with them. Until then, we cannot agree with what BOST is saying. Crude oil can be stored for a long period of time. I mean, there are countries that have stored crude for over 10 years, some over 50 years. It all depends on the handling.
But they go the extra cost of putting the enzymes in it to maintain the efficacy, apparently. Yeah. We haven't put the enzymes in.
No. You see, at the end of the day, if you don't have any challenge with this, you don't need to even treat it. If you don't have any challenge with it, you don't need to even treat it. 9 months will not do anything to crude oil if it's handled carefully, unless of course the refinery can tell us that they didn't handle this well, they had issues with the crude oil. But ordinarily 9 months is not enough period to call crude a distressed products to be able to give the level of discounts that was given by BOST. We completely disagree, unless the company can come out to tell the people of Ghana that the test was done, publish the test so that everybody will see the results, that you didn't do it deliberately. But when you hear the head of fuel trade at BOST say we have the power to give discounts even as much as $5 per metric ton or per liter, it's worrisome. You don't trade like that. You don't decide as and when you want to decide whether or not you're going to give discounts or not. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's not a commodity where we sell on the market like tomatoes where you can do whatever you want with it. You look at the benchmarks, then you decide what you're going to do with the products. When you look at this particular crude oil, it's Kwaibu from Nigeria, and if you study the benchmark that I mentioned, whether Platts, whether Argos, whether CTAC, you know that from June last year till date, the product has been selling at a premium. A premium means the price that Brent is selling now plus some amounts of money. So it's not even just the Brent cost, it's even more than that. So if you don't sell even at the market price and you don't sell at a premium and you are discounting at these huge volumes, it's quite worrisome.
I mean, could inconvenience be a factor?
No. You see, BB Energy allegedly has bought the product and this is giving it to Tor to refine. Why couldn't Tor refine the product?
And you're certain that Tor is definitely refining?
Oh yes, yes. Tor is refining the product. You can check from the refinery because, like COPEC alleges, the mechanisms at Tor, we don't have the mechanism. We don't have a reverse flow mechanism where you can export the crude back. So once BB Energy was buying the crude, definitely they knew that they were going to export it on the local market, which brings us to the license issue. You can't play in the downstream industry if you are not a licensed company, and that's also an issue that COPEC has raised. Then you listen to BOST, and BOST says that it is not their mandate to be able to determine whether or not a company is licensed, and that anybody who has any concerns should direct those concerns to the National Petroleum Authority. That's erroneous. You need to get to the NPA. You need to write as an institution to the NPA first that this is the company you decided to deal with. That is even sole sourcing, because ordinarily we expect that you're going to publish that you have this product you are selling. You invite bids, competitive bidding, but you don't do that. If you decide to sell to the company, at least what you can do for the people of Ghana is to verify with the regulator, that is National Petroleum Authority, to be able to ascertain whether or not you can trade with this company. But you don't go ahead and later tell the people of Ghana that direct your issues to the National Petroleum Authority if you feel the company is not licensed. It's untenable.
BOST has a board. I mean, so certain major decisions, are we saying that nobody within the board, the hierarchy, all missed these little details?
So far, we've only heard from management of BOST, and when you compare what COPEC is saying and what BOST is saying, if this were to be a law court, so we say it will be an adversarial system where this one will present its case, other person will present, then you analyze the investigations you've done and the research that you've done, or the practice, normal practice in the industry. So if we look at both sides, definitely one person is not being accurate. Yes, COPEC is not being accurate when it comes to the figures, because we have checked and we know that it's not 1.8 million liters. It's in the region of about 950,000 barrels. That's almost a million. So it's the 1.8 million is inaccurate. But when you check the other aspects, you know that BOST is rather not being accurate. But we haven't heard from the board. We've only heard from management, and until then we can't speak for the board whether or not the board was in the knowing, or management acted alone and then they have brought this upon themselves. One thing we find worrying as well is that we haven't heard from the supervising ministry, that is Ministry for Energy as well, concerning these issues, but so far we can't speak for the board.
Let me go to the phone line and speak to Abu Jinapo, and obviously when it comes to oil matters, he's definitely well abreast with it. Good evening and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I mean, you understand, but can you come and buy crude oil from BOST if you're not licensed in the downstream industry? Is it legal?
Thank you. First of all, I think that we ought to discuss this thing within the right perspective and move away from emotions, because we're talking about the nation Ghana, and as you rightly said, you deal in oil in a country such as Ghana without having the requisite license or authority. And this can be found in Act 691 of 2005. The Act establishing the National Petroleum Authority explicitly states what you ought to do before you can operate. And Section 27 is clear. Conditions for license and whatever you require in terms of one storage, which will be BOST. And then the other one talks about the requirements even before you can venture into the petroleum downstream subsector. And from my understanding, it is obvious that you require a license before you can even trade in any fuel in Ghana. So I believe strongly that you require a license before you can proceed to engage in petroleum business in Ghana.
Very well. Has this attention been brought to Parliament?
Certainly. Indeed, I spoke to the chairman of the Mines and Energy Committee. I think that we owe it a duty to the people of Ghana to ensure that we get into this matter and settle it. There's a lot of information out there. There's been accusations and counter-accusations. I think that the only way to deal with this is for the Mines and Energy Committee to probe into this matter, not necessarily to find fault. And that's why I have kept quiet a bit on this subject matter. I do not want to pass judgment, because there's a lot more information that we require. One, did they get the approved licenses before? One, we are talking of 2 million. BOST says that they've sold our 940 something. What happens to the remainder? Couldn't we have gotten TOR to process them, especially now that TOR is working? The oil that has been sold to this company, EV Energy, where did they take the oil to? Because you can't even export the oil from BOST tanks, from TOR tanks in Tema. And so these are legitimate questions. At what price did we sell them? Did we go according to the Public Procurement Act but the Public Procurement Act specifically has regulations and guidelines for the disposal of assets that you deem as obsolete. Assuming BOST thought that, look, we couldn't keep the fuel in the tanks forever, and they needed to dispose them of, as they say. Did they follow those procurement guidelines in terms of the disposal of the assets? So these are legitimate questions that I think that we ought to be asking. Even the sellers, what were the conditions for selling? Did they make any payments? Have they made any payments to BOST so far? Was there value for money? I think that when we go into these areas, we'll be saving a lot of time and we'll be serving the country better. And I think that Parliament, for the opportunity given, ought to rise, especially the committee, and get into this matter so that the good people of Ghana can have confidence in us as legislators.
Is this something that you're going to sit, or you're now going to propose to see if you'll be allowed to sit?
In fact, I have spoken to the chairman today, and the chairman is given firm assurance that he believes that the committee should get into this. I think that agencies like NPA, agencies like TOR, agencies like BOST ought to be brought in so that we get a full picture of what is happening. We deserve to know, and the good people of Ghana deserve to know. I think that the accusations would not resolve the problem. Press conference alone will not resolve the problem. All of us must get into this. But this even brings to the fore, from a wider perspective, even our crude oil that we export in this raw form. We've all been talking about value addition and ensuring that we do not process our products in primary state, but rather add value. Don't forget, this crude oil was bought from the 10 fields. The 10 fields are fields right here in Ghana. And so if 10 fields can be bought by BOST to be processed by TOR, what are we doing to ensure that we have both forward and backward linkages between the oil we produce in the fields, vis-a-vis working with TOR and the BDCs, and ensuring that at least we can have a very good arrangement not to create losses, but to ensure that these products are refined by TOR and then they establish the appropriate. So if TOR can buy crude from other places, it amounts to the fact that they can also buy from us at prices, and we use Rotterdam prices in Ghana. So I think that this is a golden opportunity for us, especially in Parliament. We'll get into this matter, deal with it dispassionately, get all the facts, and make recommendations going forward. Because it's becoming one too many. I think that we even ought to look at the strategic focus of BOST. Because BOST was established in 1993 to keep strategic stock and transport fuel as far as this country is concerned. What is the current state of our strategic stock? Today, if we have a challenge, can BOST step in and ensure that the nation is cushioned? Is BOST staying away from its core mandate of having strategic stocks rather than getting into trading and all that? I think these are legitimate issues that Parliament can seize itself with and ensure that we deal with it. But I also think that the ministry ought to be up and doing. I'm surprised that NPA and the ministry is silent on such a major matter. We're talking about 2 million. 2 million barrels is a lot. And the losses that have been mentioned, $5 million, if you convert that to this, that's a huge amount of money. And so I think that we really ought to get involved with this. And the ministry must be seen to be up and doing and assuring the public that they are indeed in charge of the sector.
But can we renegotiate our oil deal so that we buy? Because I know when you sell the oil fields, you know, if it's my oil field, I choose where I want to take the oil to. Can we go and renegotiate and say, look, even though we are selling you this block, we have first refusal, or it's already in there, but we just don't use it?
No, I'm even talking about our share. Because out of every listing, there is a partners list like 2 or 3. The fourth or fifth one comes to GNPC. And GNPC holds that in trust for Ghana because there's a carried interest and also has a participating interest. And so we have a share. Talo, Anadako, Cosmos, and the rest might decide that they want to sell their oil through whatever mechanism they intend doing it. But I'm saying that our part of the oil that we sell to the international business and all that, can't we have a over frontal situation, whatever you choose to call it, that we can refine the oil here at value? Because even as you refine the crude, you have a lot of other byproducts that can also spur national development. But in doing so, we should also be mindful that there's a Petroleum Revenue Management Act that specifically spells out how oil ought to be sold, the number of days the money ought to be received, how the monies ought to be lodged into the various accounts, and how it is disbursed. I believe that the country will come of age, and we should be able to do that. I don't think that should be a big problem for them.
Finally, before I let you go, I mean, is Tor equipped to refine our light crude?
Yes, because this time oil was procured for Tor to refine.
Okay.
Along the line, the refinery had a problem, but it's been rectified. And so, even when the oil came, the refinery did some refining. And Tor has assured us that it can refine our oil. And so, this idea that Tor cannot refine Ghana's oil, I think has been settled. It's been settled beyond reasonable doubt. Tor may have some financial challenges, yes. But one way of resolving those financial challenges is to deal with even the source of crude they get. If we can give them our crude and ensure that, especially now that we have virtually deregulated the system, it means that about 34 BDCs can also procure from Tor. Before they procure from Tor, they will establish an LC. Tor will then use that LC to establish an odd one LC to GMPC, so that the banks then do the back-to-back to ensure that we do not have slippages and pile up any debt, because that is normally the fear. The fear is that you might give the oil to Tor and then they may end up not paying. And so Tor itself also ought to be efficient, because for a refinery of that size, I think that they can do some introspection and ensure that they adopt some cost-cutting measures so that they can be competitive. Because in this global world, you ought to be competitive in order to survive. But Ghanaians can do that. I believe that we have the men, we have the brain power. Once there's the willpower, we might have some challenges, but I believe that we can overcome those challenges. Tor is an asset. I don't see it as a liability at all. Given the right framework, given the right mechanism and the right business plan, I'm sure that they can serve this nation better. We should not be importing more than 80% refined products into this country. When we have Tor in there, at least Tor should do about half of what we require as a nation.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jenapo, Member of Mines and Energy, and also former Minister of Deputy Minister for Energy there. I was, well, I'm a layman in the business, but I've always understood that Tor wasn't equipped enough to, refine our sort of crude.
No, like the former Deputy Minister mentioned, that issue has been settled long ago. Crude, the total parcels that we had at Tema Oil Refinery are two different parcels. There's a total of 2 million barrels. 1 million was procured from the 10 fields, that's the Trinidad and Toma and the 10 fields. And the other one is what was procured, that's the Kwaibo, was procured, which has been sold to BB Energy. Last 2 years, that's in December, around December 2016, Tor started refining the crude from 10 fields. That's the 1 million. It refined about 200,000. Then the refinery had the explosion, so it broke down and we couldn't continue the refining. So that's how come COPEC is claiming that is 1.8 million. But like I mentioned earlier, from our checks, 940,000 was sold to BB Energy, and the rest, which is from the 10 fields, are there. They are with Tema Oil Refinery. From our checks, even that BB Energy or AOT is likely to buy that, even that there are issues with it. But like you mentioned, that issue is long settled. The refinery is more than capable of refining the crude from Ghana.
Well, the production team got in touch with BOST, and this is a brief summary of what they said. We contacted BOST for a response to the latest COPEC news conference. And they tell us, as far as BOST is concerned, the claims by COPEC on Monday is a misunderstanding of the sector and how such sales are conducted. They explain that once they granted the discount, the decision to move the product to whichever location was that of BB Energies to make, and that failure of BB Energy to move the product does not mean BOST should not have granted them the discount. On the license issue, BOST maintained BB Energy did not require a license to buy their crude. As the message.
In fact,
okay, let me go on the phone again. I have lawyer Yao Opong, maybe give us some legal education on the issue. Hello, lawyer.
Good evening, Nana.
It's been a long time.
That's true. That's true. Forgive me. I have about 3 white rams to sacrifice for the remission of my sins.
Thank you. COPEC is looking at sending this petition to the special prosecutor. Well, they send it to the special prosecutor. What are they going to do here?
Well, thank you very much. Well, I think first of all, the point has to be made that the special prosecutor is only an investigative institution, and I'll say it just because Mr. Martinamidu will not be working alone. So any complaint may be made to the person, but before you do so, you need to have a deep understanding of the law and the parameters. Otherwise, you may make a complaint to him and only to be told that he doesn't have, or that institution has no jurisdiction to, or it is not within his purview as determined by law to even begin investigation in such matter. But as for making complaints, I think that it's within every person's remit to do so. Now, we have the police who investigate general matters concerning crime and offences, as may be authorized by the Attorney General. Other institutions, YOCO, and so on, national security have sometimes also taken a status. So, well, I think to the extent that people will still want to explore the parameters of the law, they must be encouraged to do so. But knowing that even the special prosecutor doesn't have the final say as to whether or not a person's conduct, act, omission or commission constitutes a criminal offense, and that it is a court of law that has the jurisdiction to determine such matters. We will be guided before we take any such action.
What's the law? I mean, if I wanted to buy crude in Ghana, must I definitely be licensed? I mean, this was they just coming to buy from Tor and go away. This is oil that kept for a year. They needed their money back. Is it the same? I mean, what does the law? What's the position of the law?
Well, if they have in fact commenced a process with the special prosecutor or anything like that protocol, then we may not want to go into the legalities or the nitty-gritty of what should be determined by either the special prosecutor or the court. But otherwise, the laws have always laid down procedure, and at the level of the Supreme Court, they have stated over and over again that where a law provides a procedure by which a thing may be done, it is by that procedure alone that that thing should be done. Now, so if the law provides that before that crude or any other substance such as that may be sold, there has been a controversy. Some have said that the institution must need a license. Some have said that it depends on the type of the product which is up for sale. And so the arguments are there. I think that matters like this, it is only appropriate that a court of law determines it to the satisfaction of all. So testing it in court may not be something that we should discourage, except that at the same time we should also know that other people have their rights, and if you trample upon, and then you also take maybe personal action. I think already one of the parties has taken a personal action against the other in terms of defamation or something like that. So let's all pursue these matters at the law court, better that way, or where arbitration or other medium for resolution of disputes or misunderstandings are provided in law. We pursue that. That is how we live in a peaceful and civilized country. So it's good, let parties resort to law and not name calling and other wild allegations. Discussing it on media is fine. People also then get opportunity to express their views, but the ultimate process for resolution is at the court. So let us encourage that, knowing that if you wrongly make an allegation against a person which you think is within your right, he has also the right to then also ask that you pay compensation for such wrongful, if you like, infringement of his right to liberty, or maybe reputation that you may have destroyed, which may not be restored.
Lawyer, thank you very much for that insight, and I hope to see you on the show soon. That's Dr. That's lawyer Yao Pong, who's a lecturer at Central University and also a private legal practitioner. Is there ever going to be a stage or an era? It seems to be a cartel, and it doesn't matter, you know, it's like which mafia group is running, they just control the affairs. Is there going to be a time when, you know, that some smooth transparency in the oil, or it will never happen? Because that's the oil sector, man. It's never transparent.
Yes, it's always been the case over the period where the oil industry looks like an industry where it's shrouded in secrecy. You have to dig deep before you get any information. And over the years, we've been encouraging transparency in the sector. If you remember, even before this administration took charge, one of the promises was that oil blocks were going to be given out on competitive bidding, instead of that's open tender, instead of over the years the sole sourcing that we've seen. So yes, it's something that we need to improve. We need to be transparent when it comes to deals in the oil sector, because there's a whole lot of in fact, the allegations of corruption because of how deals are handled, and it might not be the case, but once information is not coming, once the people have to struggle before they get any information, that's where the danger lies. For example, this deal we are talking about, this crude sale issues, if the management of BOST decided to advertise that we have this crude oil, it's been there for 10 months, we want to sell it, if you're interested, come out and buy it, definitely won't have the challenges that we have today. But nothing was done. All we heard was that BB Energy has bought the crude. The allegations are to date BB Energy hasn't paid. The allegations that other players also we wanted to buy the crude to supply to Asogli, but that wasn't done. All those are allegations. If the investigations are done, we'll be able to ascertain. Those are the challenges that we've had with the business. But over the period, I'm sure that once we have more interested groups, when we have the media also being interested in the activities, definitely we will have some level of transparency in the industry, because it's sickening, to be frank. It's worrisome. Every now and then, when issues have come out, it has to be either a journalist or a think tank or a pressure group that has been able to unravel these issues. It doesn't come out openly. So if we've been able to unravel this, we did the BOST moving Pina Saga last year. ASAP has done theirs, COPEC has done part. Assuming these organizations don't exist, imagine what will happen. Assuming the media doesn't exist over the years, we should look at the level of exposés that the media has been able to bring out over the period. So we should encourage transparency. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll save ourselves out of some of these embarrassments, whether or not they are true or not. Now, BOST will have to answer for this. So yes, we are hoping that soon we'll see some level of transparency in the sector.
Is this going to be one of those stories where at the end of the day, you know, they come up and say, look, forget it, nothing happened?
In fact, I'll be very disappointed if that happens. In fact, last year we were so disappointed, and I believe that the people of Ghana were also disappointed, especially when moves were made. When the issue came out, the MPA came out, says if you check Section 11 of Act 591, that's the MPA Act, you cannot trade, you cannot engage in any activity unless you are licensed. So the MPA was spot on. The matter was referred to the Energy Ministry. The Energy Ministry came out that they are forming a committee made up of stakeholders, made up of representatives from various groups, and also the security services. The BNI was represented, only for another press conference to come out that, hey, the investigations have been conducted, nothing happened. Meanwhile, glaringly, we all know that we had challenges with this. So we are hoping that this won't be the same. The investigations will be conducted. I think it's only fair for the company. Like I mentioned earlier, we are truly worried about the reputation of the company, because a company with such critical mandates, and a company that over the years has delved into fuel trading, it's quite not regular, and it's not good for the image of the company that we should be having these allegations, especially when the managing director seems to be at the center. Every now and then when you hear the allegations, the name of the managing director is singled out. So this issue has become a COPEC Alfred Obeng matter. When you hear Alfred Obeng, in fact, you are one of the few journalists that you mentioned BOST. You know, you've not paid particular attention to it, because obviously there are managements, like you mentioned earlier, there's a board, so you can't single out. But over the landscape, it's been about the individual, and if you investigate the issues, at the end of the day, we will know whether the person is culpable or not. But it will help all of us. But it's not looking good for the company. We know for a fact that they've been struggling. Even ECG had to disconnect the light of the company. You can check. We know that they've been struggling with salaries. The allegations that they have to go and borrow money to even pay salaries. There are also allegations that there is no competent fuel trader, and it's one of the challenges.
That's my next question. So let me take a quick break and come back and find out this fuel trader business. Does it mean we're encouraging BOST to move from their core duty as reserving fuel for us on a rainy day, or now we just unleash them so that they go out on the market, buy and sell as a bulk distributor and go? Well, thank you very much for staying. And just before the break, Richmond is going to go into this trader issue. Now, Richmond, you see, for our understanding, BOST is there to save fuel for just in case there's fuel shortage or there's a war or coup or something. They can supply us for 3 months. Yes, 3 months of fuel until we can sort of even ourselves out. But now they seem to be doing the everyday buying and distributing to people. If we are calling for traders, are we encouraging them to move from the strategic side to the everyday business now? You see,
times change. That's the truth of the matter. That's the realistic position. Over the period, BOST was set up in '93 to be able to reserve fuel, strategic fuels for us. So as and when we need it, as and when there are issues with our system, then BOST will be able to release these fuels onto the market. But over the period, TOR will have to expand its operations. TOR will have to, even when it comes to storage, I mean, we don't have to be at just 3 months. Initially, we were about 4 weeks. We moved to 6 weeks, and we're supposed to be 3 months now. We should be able to expand to have even a year. There are countries that have 30 years of storage, that when should anything happen, they'll be able to survive for so many years. So we should be able to expand. Is government willing to push the necessary funding into the company? Is government willing to help the company expand, whether it's operations, whether it's storage facilities? Over the years, that is what has led to the innovation of BOST going into trading. Ordinarily, that wasn't why BOST was set up, but the challenges that they've been facing over the period has led to that. So they've been trading for some time now. They made some level of profits a few years back. Last year, the allegation is that they made losses and they owe companies huge sums of monies, and that is why we are saying that if the company is going into trading, which we think that it will come to stay, unless of course government is willing to pump in huge sums, because the 3 pesos per liter we give them is woefully inadequate. In fact, we are aware that some debts that the company incurred way back, some years back, that is what these monies are being used to pay. So as we speak, the company does not really have any source of funding. If government is not willing to go into it, definitely the company will go into trading. But if you're willing to go into trading, you're supposed to put in mechanisms to make sure that you're not going to make losses. Because if you're going to go into trading because you have to make money to be able to expand your operations and you're going to be making losses, then there's no point. So at least you should have a very competent forward trading team where they can study the market to be able to determine whether or not these are good times to bring in products, whether these are good times to release the products that we have, to be able to replace them with cheaper products. Because the oil market is very volatile. It's today, in fact, some few weeks ago, we had prices going about $70 per barrel. Today, as we speak, it's trading around $64 per barrel. The last time we had prices crossing $70 per barrel was 2014 December, and before that we had prices go above $100 per barrel. So you should be able to understand the market at every point in time, whether or not making this decision will be the right decision for the companies to be able to bring in crude. But like I mentioned earlier, there's no forward trading team. I mean, the press conference was addressed by the head of forward trade, and we'll be happy for the head of forward trade to be able to tell us who his members or his trading team partners are. But there is no competent forward trading team at BOST, and it's important that the company takes a critical look at it. There was a forward trading team, but it was shut down, it was collapsed, and I think they're trying to revive it. But if you're able to study the market, you won't be making some of these errors. What's
the MPA's position on this issue?
Oh, the MPA is the regulator. It's the regulator. In fact, a few years ago, the regulator didn't speak about it. Didn't speak against it. Last year, BOST traded, and the regulator hasn't spoken against it. So I want to believe that the regulator has.
With regards to this this 900,000 barrel saga, what's MPA's position?
In fact, it's strange. The MP has said nothing, absolutely nothing about it, and it's quite worrisome, especially when you're talking about a company that is allegedly being mentioned that the company is not licensed to trade in the products that it's bought. Because if the company has bought the products and it's just exporting, that's different. But now the company, the product is being refined, that means definitely a company is going to sell the product on the local market. If it doesn't have the requisite license, why should a company even trade in the first place? So the silence of the regulator is sickening. The silence of the ministry is also sickening, because we should be able to know as of now whether or not the right decisions were made or not. And it's strange, because over the period, Mr. Hassan Tampoli is a very proactive person. He's somebody who is quick to respond to issues, to settle the issues once and for all. But we don't know why this time around he's been relatively quiet and is not saying anything about the issue. It will be also interesting to hear from the board of the company whether or not the board is aware of this deal, whether the management has briefed the board and the management has been cleared by the board itself. And we think that the best way to solve this issue is to probe or to investigate it. But we don't agree with Parliament probing it. So a few weeks ago we saw the cash for seat saga, and anybody who monitored it knew the positions. In fact, the line of questioning the position, in fact, before they even came, everyone had their entrenched position, and you could see from the line of questioning. You want an independent body. It's important that we have an independent body, even if it's civil society groups, representatives from several civil society groups, to be able to investigate this issue and present the report to the people of Ghana, or the ministry responsible for energy, to be able to take the necessary decisions that
Let's watch this space.
That would be better.
Let's watch this space and see how it goes. Interesting times ahead. But I always give you this number. It's 024 366 2001. 024 366 2001. That's Tanti's Fashion. They're just by Nyao Clinic, and they give me my shirts for the show. You give them a call wherever you are in the country. They'll put one on a VIP bus and get it delivered to you. I want to say thank you so much to Richmond Roxon, Principal Research Analyst, Institute of Energy and Security.
No energy security, no end. No end.
Good. Energy security. Well, tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you very much for watching.